Greetings, programs, and welcome to a new episode of the Awesome Friday podcast. I am your host, Matthew, and with me this week is Rachel to help me review two new movies. How are you, Rachel?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing, Matthew?
I am good. That's it. I'm good. I don't have any extra banter at this point. What's new in your life? You have stuff going on because you're important and an editor of film
Do
stuff.
I?
So what's...
Do I have stuff going on?
I don't know. I'm just trying to direct the conversation.
When you said that immediately, I just thought, is he trying to get me to talk about some Elvis thing? But I'm like, no, you're not, because you're sick of me talking about that anyways.
So first off, I am not sick of you talking about Elvis. And second, I just assumed that would come up organically at some point.
It always does. I mean, I recorded an episode with Dakota yesterday, and I was like, it's impressive to me that I didn't mention Elvis once. Although when I started speaking with him, I think we did talk about Elvis before we started recording.
The most recent episode of Contra Zoom that I've listened to is the one that you recorded with our friend Todd. And there's I enjoyed the section where you guys sort of very friendly, but not so friendly, had it out about how much Elvis was going to be on the podcast for the next 12 months.
Because before we started recording, we were talking about Elvis, and Todd was saying, because I tweeted something out about the 68 special DVD, and he said he was at work, and he was he saw it and was like, oh shit, I kind of want to check eBay to see if I can get a copy too. And then he just I had no intention of bringing it up in the episode, and then he brought it up as a joke, and it really made me laugh. But I don't mind. I don't mind that my personality has just become Elvis Presley recently.
Yeah, you know what else I remember from that episode of Contra Zoom is that you don't know what this show is called.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my bad. It's funny because it's the easiest podcast name to remember as well. It's a very, very simple name, but for some reason my mind had just gone blank at that point. You know what it was? I was reading my little script that I had written, and I think that I left out the name of the podcast, and I was like, I'll remember it. I don't need to write this down. And then as I'm reading, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And you're reading a script, and you're like, oh, I have to remember something spontaneously now. What? But also, you're on staff now, basically, so you should know.
I know it is true. Yeah, it is.
You're here all the time,
so. Pretty much.
Yeah.
When Simon's not available, I'm here. Even when Simon is available, free to hop in.
Well, we should definitely do that more frequently and further your podcasting career and your film person career. Let's get one of us Rotten Tomatoes that did this year. How about that? That's good. Seems like you're the likely candidate.
I don't know if I don't know if I've done enough years though. I was trying to calculate it out, and I'm technically still not.
Don't you just need to be active for 2 years in the next?
I haven't been active for 2 years though.
But the next intake is in the fall, right? And you will be by then.
Oh, is it in the fall? I thought it was going to be in the spring.
I thought it was January and then the fall, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, so they just had one and I missed it. I
mean, honestly, I'm probably wrong because I got turned down last year and I'm not allowed to apply again for 2 years, so I'm not going to be thinking about it until 2023 or 2024.
Is that how that works? If they deny you can't apply for 2 years? That's rough.
Yeah, although I've heard things they said that in their email, but then also I've had someone be like, I just applied 6 months later, and they didn't say anything about it. I just got in, so I have no idea.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'll apply. I think I did apply the last round, but they didn't get back to me at all. They didn't deny me, nor did they didn't even acknowledge my existence pretty much. But I did write in there, I think there was a place to put a note, and I did say I've only been doing this for a year, so I understand that I'm bending the rules here. Right. Somebody had said to me, they were just apply, what's the worst that can happen? I was like, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I guess I will be 2 years. If it's fall, then I'll be 2 years, and then I can apply.
Yeah, maybe it might be. You might be right though. It might be March. Rotten Tomatoes.
I thought it was March, but I
intake.
But I because I don't follow them on the Twitter and all that kind of stuff, because I think that they probably put up when the application is available on there. So I probably should follow them.
I mean, probably. They probably check that. Maybe. I don't know. They're a big organization. They're either really on the ball or maybe not so much.
You know what? That's a good point. Let me just give them a quick follow here.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, they next applications reopen in March the 1st. So you got time.
So, like, my whole thing though is like I technically didn't start. I think my very first thing that I got published on Exclaim was April 2021. So is that
Oh
technically 2 years? Like, am I at 2 years, or are they like, oh no, like you're a month shy? You know what I
no,
mean?
that's 2 years. That's 2 years. 2 years as the crow flies, so you'll be fine.
All right, I gave him a follow, so now I'm into it.
Good. Well, then, like I say, at least one of the people in our circle should be Rotten Tomatoes accredited, I think. And you seem like the front runner, so let's make that
The circle, as in
happen.
the Awesome Friday circle.
Actually, that's not true even because at least I know at least two other people in like more general circle of the people who
I
I
was gonna say because I think Thomas is. I know Thomas is
yeah
certified.
yeah Thomas from For
Um,
Real is, and so is Taylor from Drinking the Movies. He's on
uh,
tomatoed as well.
was Taylor? I thought Taylor was a part of For Real, or is this a different Taylor?
There's two Taylors.
Oh, I don't know the other Taylor, or do I? I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't
maybe
think
not.
I know the other Taylor. I
Yeah.
only know one Taylor.
Normally on the when we are in like mixed company, we just call For Real Taylor is Beaumont and uh, Drinking the Movies
Oh
Taylor is Baker.
yes. Okay, yes, I do recall when I was hanging out with the For Real guys, they kept saying calling someone Beaumont. I thought that was a different person, but that was that they were talking about Taylor.
Yeah, because there's two Taylors.
Got you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these are the tangled webs we weave as film critic friends, having multiple Taylors in our
I
lives.
think I met Taylor. Was Taylor at TIFF this year?
Oh yeah, he was.
I think I might have met Taylor at TIFF.
Yeah, and don't worry, I'm definitely not cutting this part out of the show.
Do you know what's bad though? Like in that Conquer Team episode with Todd, I think I asked him, I was like, have you been to Toronto? And I'm like, right, I met you in Toronto. Like we just met a few months ago in Toronto. I met up with him like I think 2 or 3 times I saw him during TIFF. I had lunch with him once, and then like I sat and I had a conversation with him another time.
You
So
went
I
to a
knew
bunch
he
of
was
movies
around.
together too, right? Like that's as my
Oh yeah,
under.
we did. We sat next to each other watching. Oh, it's terrible. It's really bad. But yeah, and then I think and then while we were at TIFF, I remember, oh, we were talking about the A24 episodes on ContraZoom. And then I even looked at Thomas and I go, oh, Thomas, how come you haven't done one? And Thomas is like, I have. You were there. I'm like, oh, shit. Damn. Right. You did. Like, he did do it. Like, I remember now. I think he did Lock with us. I want to say he did Lock. I could
I
be
think
wrong,
that's
though.
correct, and I only
I could be
think I know that
very
because I just
wrong.
listened to your Most Dangerous Year episode, and I believe you called that out.
Yeah, because I felt really bad afterwards. I'm just like, Thomas, you should come on, and he's like, I've been like we've spoken before, and I was like, oh. To be fair, we don't use video in ContraZoom very often, so I don't really see these people. I just hear a voice, and I don't visualize the person.
Yeah, I don't get that. I like the
Nice.
video. At least I
I
like
actually
people to
like the
see the
video
person I'm
too, but
talking to.
I don't know. Dakota, I don't know. I don't know. Dakota doesn't like doing the video too much.
Yeah.
Um, he's open to it because I remember I did ask him at one point. I said like maybe we should do video because it's just easier for me to see when you're done talking, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then the thing is, then I have to like make sure I'm not sitting on the floor and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you,
So
you don't have to do that.
yeah, that's true.
Because like you don't have to record the video part. I'm just saying.
No, it's true. It's true. But whatever. But the problem has been whenever we have like we turn the video on if there's an interview with say like a director or something like that, then we'll do video. But if it's
Hmm.
just like you guys, um yeah, video's off. But then that's the problem is I don't know who has been on. So when I look at Thomas in the face, I don't realize. Yeah, we've actually spoken for like an hour and a half, and I did not remember that. But I remember feeling really bad about that.
Well, I mean, on the other hand, like I don't feel too bad because I know I've been on ContraZoom twice for the A24 retrospectives,
Have you been on?
and I literally just had to look up what the second one was, and it was like it was the episode before Todd's, and I forgot that it was that one. So,
But you and I haven't. Have you and I done a Contra Zoom episode together? I don't think we have.
I believe you
Or
were there for the Rover. Uh,
Oh shit! Yeah, you're
Yeah, but I think it was just me and Dakota for the captive. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yes. The captive I didn't do with you guys, but yeah. Okay, we have done a
yeah.
Contra Zoom episode together. Okay, Simon, I don't think has been on Contra Zoom. I want to say that.
No,
I want to put that
um,
out there that I
that's
don't
a
think he's
solvable.
been.
It's a solvable problem. I'm sure he'd love to
Yeah,
come on.
a lot of these things are solvable. I could just have a better memory, but
Yeah.
at the minimum, though, I have applied it equally across everybody that I just forget who's been on. So at least I'm not focusing on one specific. Like I'm not like Todd. I don't know who you are. It's been applied very very generously across everyone. So it's fine.
Well, it's
It's fine.
very very egalitarian of you, but well done.
Yeah, I
Well
try.
done.
I try. I am, if
Yeah.
nothing, but an equal opportunist.
And just because it hasn't come up organically, not really. What is your Elvis jam today?
Oh, rubbernecking. Great. Rubbernecking. I was listening to very specifically the 1969 live version at the International Hotel.
Hmm.
Uh, and it plays after the Are You Lonesome Tonight version where he's laughing the whole time, which is,
Huh.
if it's a funny one.
I
But I
think
really like Rubbernecking. It's a really good song.
I think there's like isn't that one of the ones that got like an Oakenfold remix on one of the like number one or the Second to None album? I think.
I don't know about those things. I'm not that deep into Elvis yet. It sounds like
Yes,
I
you
should be,
are.
but
Yes, you are. What are you
no.
talking about? I'm not that deep into Elvis. I only listen to every song every day.
Yeah, I pretty much do.
Let's see
I
here.
had a great day with just gospel music of Elvis. And I have to say, when you're in the mood for gospel, like I don't listen to gospel music really ever, but when you're in the mood for it, it really hits. Like when you're in the right mindset to take on some Elvis gospel music, it's good shit. It's good stuff.
Yeah, he's good shit.
He
Let's see
is. He
in
really is.
in the number one's album, it was Junkie XL.
I'll also
Re-
say, I really like Kentucky Rain. I was listening to that in the morning. Really enjoy that song. It's really good. There's a
I
really
mean,
cool YouTube channel that I shared it with you. That they just put together all of the session recordings, like every single version
hmm
of a single song, and so the videos are like 30 minutes to 45, sometimes up to an hour, and it's
hmm
amazing. The Jailhouse Rock one is incredible to hear him do that because he like messes up a few times,
hmm
and it's kind of cool to hear. So shout out to that channel. I don't know their name. Leon, something Leon.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
he
So
does
on the
really great.
Elvis, Second to None, which came out in the early zeros, which was a collection. So there was when I was young, back in the late '90s, early zeros, there was an album that came out that was called just Elvis Number Ones. There was 30
Hmm.
tracks on it, and it's a great album. And then a couple years later, they did a follow up called Second to None, which was basically everything that was super popular. And as I understand it, like didn't get to number one. And yeah,
Right.
the last track on that album is a Paul Oakenfold remix of Rubberneckin', which you should totally check out.
I should. It's a really good song.
Yeah,
Really. It's weird. He's got good music. But I was saying to you, I'm like reading his books and I'm getting to the end and sad. It's
yeah.
sad. It's to the point that I kind of want to stop reading. Like once I read, oh, he's performed at the International Hotel, then I'm like, maybe I should stop the book and then
That is
move
that is
on.
sort of where the good memories stop, isn't it?
That is, yeah. But then I feel like you gotta kind of, I don't know, you have to take the good with the bad kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it's just really sad. It's just really, really sad, and it bums me out a little bit, and it puts me in a weird funk.
Interestingly, that that's where the good memories stop, and it's also where the movie sort of gains a narrative. uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
The more I read about Elvis and like the more I get it, like I have to say I don't know if I like Austin Butler's performance more, but I feel like how they chose what to focus on in Elvis's career is a bit dodgy. Cause like he still does like they don't even do anything with the Aloha special. I don't think in the movie, if I remember
yeah.
correctly.
Well, I don't
They
believe
don't do
so.
any. They basically went like after he divorces him and Priscilla divorced, then his life went to ruins. And I'm like, he still had some good years after that though. Like, let's be real. And he
Yeah,
had like a really great love with Linda Thompson afterwards as well, and they don't talk about that in the slightest. And so, yeah,
yeah. It's not even in the movie at all.
no, she's never mentioned. And then I always found it interesting at the very end when they did the montage because they included a clip of their wedding, Priscilla and Elvis's wedding. And I find it, I mean, not to get into a Priscilla thing, but I'm just saying she's not a widow, but the way that it's been kind of painted afterwards is like she is his widow. And I'm like, but they were divorced for however many years before he died. And he like fell in love again after. But I digress. It's neither here nor there.
I mean, to me, she'll always be Jane from The Naked Gun. So it doesn't really.
You know what? So okay, this is the weirdest thing. On like there are weird people on Instagram, like in Instagram comments.
Sorry,
Is
there are weird people on the internet.
yeah, I know it's weird, right?
Surely you jest.
It's weird, but I've noticed that like Elvis people on Instagram comments are weird. Like they say weird things. And anytime that I see a picture of Elvis and Priscilla and there's a comment, there's always somebody who goes, "That's not Priscilla." And I'm like, "What?" It's like, and they're just convinced that that's not Priscilla Presley. I'm like, that's really weird. But then I think about it and I go, when I compare her to because I didn't realize that was her in Naked Gun. Like, because she doesn't look the same, actually. I don't think that she really looks anything like the pictures I see of her in Elvis. And then I think of that woman from Naked Gun.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look anything alike to me. And it took me like longer than it should have to realize that that was the same person. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, damn. Because so on one hand, the person's crazy who keeps saying that on commenting on every single picture that that's not Priscilla. But on the other hand, I kind of get where she's coming from. Like, it doesn't look like her. It's weird.
Does this person also have thoughts about the geometric shape of the planet by any chance?
Probably. I bet you they probably do. I
And
mean, I didn't
or
really look too hard into their profile, but like probably. Like
and
it's
or the extent to which the 1960s space program perhaps existed. You know,
they
like
all kind of
just
they all that's it's a big Venn diagram, isn't it? The people
yeah,
who think Elvis is still rocking and like, you know, all these things.
yep,
Also, the idea that Elvis didn't die, I'm like, that's really like that's painting him in a really negative light then, because that's just saying he didn't even want to be around for his own daughter. He was like, screw all this. And I'm like, that's messed up to say something like that. Generally
yeah.
speaking, if someone dies, just, you know, get over it, and they died. I say get over it. I mean, I'm not really over it. So, you know.
And you just found out about it though, so it's fresh for
I
you.
just discovered Elvis. It was I was having dinner with some friends and they were we were talking about like music, and then he listed off these things and I was like, I have no idea who these people are. And he's like, oh, like I'm really into, I can't remember what he said now. It's like really obscure European stuff. And I just look at him like, I literally just discovered Elvis. I'm not ready to do this really niche European trap music or whatever the hell it is that you're doing. But
Nice.
yeah.
This is the point in the banter where I ask you if you've seen Bubba Hotep, and without trying to get too in depth,
I
recommend it if
haven't.
you haven't.
I haven't.
I feel like you should check out this movie. I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you, it involves an elderly Elvis played by Bruce Campbell living in a nursing home, terrorized by a mummy.
I I I haven't watched apart from Baz Luhrmann's movie. I actually haven't really dipped into the movies about Elvis. I've been watching his movies,
Mm-hmm.
which my god, that's been something. But I just recently watched Girls 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 yesterday. Have you seen that one?
No, maybe when I was a kid. I haven't seen any
They
Elvis movies recently.
they've got some like Chinese things going on in there that made me a little uncomfortable, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this Elvis.
Casual
But
racism in the 50s?
it's
Surely
just
you
like
jest.
and then I looked up like the two actors, the two Chinese actors who are in it, and I'm like, they're born in California, both of them, but yet for some reason in the movie they had these really awful quote unquote Chinese accents. I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah,
However, that being said, Elvis looked really good. Like he looked real fine in that movie.
yeah, he's a devastatingly handsome man.
He was a very, very handsome man.
Yeah.
And that was the one that has Return to Sender. It's great.
Oh, there's a cat. There's a cat in here now. Um, yeah, you should definitely watch Bubba Hotep. I feel like you will either love it or hate it, and there's not going to be that much middle ground.
There's not going to be like, it's not going to be like a 6, 7 out of 10. It's either going to be a 1, 2 or a 9, 10.
Pretty much. I remember really liking it.
When
I
was the
haven't
last
actually
time you
seen
saw
it.
it though?
It came out in 2002, so like late zeros would probably be the last
Okay.
time that I saw it. It also has what is his name? Ozzie Davis. Ozzie Davis, who plays,
Who's playing?
who's a very famous African American actor playing JFK, like an aged JFK.
Oh, so JFK's still alive in this movie as well, eh?
Yeah,
Is he
and
still alive or
they
is he a mummy?
no, he's still alive, and he has a whole thing about how he was his death was faked by the CIA, and they turned him black and hid him away in this nursing home. Like,
Wow.
it is definitely a
Wow.
film. It is definitely a
That
movie,
is
a capital M
wow.
movie.
Wow. I will watch this. Okay, I will watch it.
Yeah, and I believe, if my memory serves, the premise is that it's an aged Elvis who lives in this nursing home, and towards the end of his career, he was really unhappy, and he paid an Elvis impersonator to take his place for one night, and then the impersonator just like never gave it back, like never gave it back. So he's lived the life of this impersonator for the rest of his life.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Who wrote this?
I don't remember his name. I don't know if he's really done anything else.
Don
Cos-
Coscarelli.
Coscarelli. Yeah. He did,
That's
he wrote John Dies at the End, which
fascinating.
is also pretty good.
That's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
I think I could take this over, like, I don't know, like the Priscilla movies or the Kurt Russell plays him, I think, in the movie. Jonathan Rhys Meyers does a mini series. I feel like this would be more palatable.
Yeah. That miniseries is on Tubi, just for the record.
I also got that you sent me. It's like the streaming channel that's just always Elvis,
Yeah.
just all the Elvis.
Yeah. Well, I'm fully supportive of your new Elvis habit.
Thank you, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I really
And you know,
appreciate it.
that is very much like the first movie we're going to talk about today.
No, it's not. No,
No,
it's
it's
not.
not at
Don't
all.
disrespect Elvis that way. Don't. No,
I
it's
didn't
not.
get that. Could you try again?
Let's
Oh,
let's have some show.
somehow I set off my Siri by laughing too hard. Uh, but yeah, let's move on to the movies. I feel like we've been bantering for a long time, which, to be clear, I don't regret. And I feel like it's might because you may have just given away how we feel about the movie in the way you reacted to my transition. uh, so good. So let's talk about the new Amazon Prime exclusive release, Somebody I Used to Know.
Can I just say, there's always a media note in their releases that they like to be called Prime Video. So
Oh, Prime Video.
yeah,
Right.
watch
Prime
yourselves.
Video.
Don't get Bezos on your back. They like
I
to be
shall
called Prime
indeed
Video.
check myself before I wreck myself.
There you go.
Yeah, but it's an exclusive release to Prime Video, starring Alison Brie and directed by her husband, Dave Franco.
And written by
Who,
the two of them together. Just want to point that
yeah,
out.
written by them together and produced, I believe one of them's involved in producing it as well, maybe. Um, yeah, but it's Amazon Studios, and it is a romantic comedy about a woman played by Alison Brie who suffers a career setback and goes back to her hometown and meets her ex from her past who's about to get married, and then spends the rest of the movie trying to break up that marriage. And if it sounds like I'm describing my best friend's wedding, it's because I'm describing a lesser version of my best friend's wedding.
Very true.
Is that fair to say, do you think?
Yeah, it's like okay, so first off, the guy who plays Jay Ellis plays Sean, who's the first love of Alison Brie's life.
Yeah.
He's great. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed him in it.
His new fiance is played by Kiersey Clemens, and I also really enjoyed her.
She's lovely. She's really, really great in this, actually. I noticed, I looked her up. She's going to be in like a ton of stuff coming up, I think. Not a ton, but like a good amount of things that enough to be excited for. I'll say that. It's enough to be excited for. for her. What was I looking at? Oh, she's going to be in the Flash movie, and then there's a TV show. Anyways,
Yeah, she was Iris West in the uh in Zack Snyder's Justice League, I guess, because she was cut out of the theatrical release of that movie.
from Justice League.
Yeah.
I always like that name for it. I was like, who came up with it? It's really funny that they call it Justice League. But anyways, yeah, someone I don't know. This movie, it's very. I was messaging you while I was watching it, and I'm just like, all I really want to do is watch My Best Friend's Wedding at this point because it literally is the same plot of My Best Friend's Wedding, except I would say it's crueler than My Best Friend's Wedding because at least in My Best Friend's Wedding, Julianne, played by Julia Roberts, was actually invited to the wedding. Like she showed up, she was invited, she was a guest. And
Yeah, she's not
then
a wedding crasher. She doesn't like.
she's not a crasher.
She doesn't
And
use
then
her former boyfriend's parents' love of her to like get herself invited,
yeah, and
which
she's
is what
not like
happens in
trying
this
to.
one.
And she's not like trying to push it too far of saying like of trying to. Oh no, she does do like bad stuff, but Alison Brie's character, whose name I kind of forget, Allie.
It's Allison Brie. She plays Allison Brie in this movie. And
But
I'm
yeah,
not
I
saying
mean,
that to be like mean or to say she's not acting. It's just being like this movie is ultimately my like one word review would be forgettable.
it's
In
very
that,
forget. I mean, I was when I was writing my review for Exclaim, which I wrote like maybe 2 days after I saw the movie. I could barely remember anything, and I kept having to ask you different things because I just couldn't remember what it was. And like, I asked you what does the boyfriend do? Like, what was his job? I was like, was he an interior designer or something? And like, so in my review, because you sent it to me, you said renovation slash construction, and then I think I wrote in my review, I went renovation slash design. I was like, I didn't really remember who he
with
was.
with a question mark, but it like
Yeah,
never it like comes up exactly once in the movie, just
yeah.
like oh yes, I renovated the bar we're sitting in,
Hmm.
and that proves that I am a successful person in my hometown.
Hmm.
Um,
But I'll say
it-
so. I found the movie just really hollow, and it's just like whenever you're doing these types of derivatives of classic movies, and like, let's be clear, My Best Friend's Wedding doesn't own that kind of storyline. A lot of other movies have done it before and since, but it is a very, but is remarkably close to My Best Friend's Wedding, though, like very, very close. Um, but the thing is, I just found it really like forgettable is a good word. It's really hollow. But then I was watching a podcast and a movie podcast of these film critics, these American film critics, and one of them just had like the deepest thoughts about this movie, which I was like, oh wow, like because he was saying he was like it's kind of it's about identity and it's about like not taking your work so seriously and like looking beyond your career and your professional to identify yourself and like be content with who you are and like filling your time and filling your life. And I was like, wow, you really went to a place with this movie that I did not in the slightest. But I kind of think that um I think that that's kind of a nice thing about movies is that I can watch it and just be like, yeah, no, whatever. But at least somebody out there is like thinking a bit deeper on it and like they get something out of it as much as I think, yeah, no, you're just grasping at straws. And maybe the reason that your brain went and started thinking about all those things is because the movie was so dull that you literally had nothing else to like pin your hat on. That was all you were like, all you could think of was taking a point that they were trying to make and then running with it on your own. I
I
don't know.
mean, that is actually a very good read on the arc of Alison Brie's character through the
Yeah.
movie, who is work obsessed at the beginning and really coming into her, back into being herself at the end. Um, and while I agree I believe that arc is technically successful. I also believe it is probably the shallowest version of that arc being successful. Like it's
Very
not,
much so.
it's all surface. Like this
It
movie
is.
is, I hollow's a good word. I would say that to coin a phrase that my dad likes to use sometimes, I think that this movie brings new depth to shallow.
Huh.
Um, because it is all surface, and some
Yeah,
some
it
of it
is.
is nice. There's a couple of good scenes. I actually really enjoyed the scene, even though it's kind of ridiculous. But there's a scene where Alison Brie like does an impromptu song to the tune of "Semi Charmed Life,"
Yeah, I didn't like
and
that.
and
I
like
didn't
I
like
just I found I was like, I enjoyed it kind of despite myself because I really like Semi Charmed Life and I really like Allison Brie, and I think I just wanted to like it. Um, the scene itself is super clumsy, but she's kind of adorable, so it just sort of worked for
She
me.
is.
You
I think
know?
the reason I didn't like it because I just thought, oh my god, they're even gonna do like a karaoke kind of scene, which is what they did in my best friend's wedding. Like that's all I could. I'm like, wow, they're really doing this as well. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what was going through my mind. The one scene I did like was between Danny
Yeah,
Putty
yeah.
and
Um,
Alison Brie because I used to watch Community. I didn't finish to the end, but when Community first came out, I really enjoyed it, and they have a really nice commu- ooh,
yeah, Vancouver.
siren out there, big
Yeah.
siren. But they have a really nice chemistry between them. So it was nice when they first see each other again because they're kind of playing. Well, Danny plays like the guy who's like her best friend from home, kind of thing, who she hasn't seen in a while, and they pick up kind of where they left off, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they have a really cute little back and forth there, and I enjoyed that, but that was because Community.
Yeah.
It's more a Community thing than anything else. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's a very trite movie, and just the whole thing. Like I just wanted to watch my best friend's wedding. Like I came out of that movie being like, I could really watch my best friend's wedding right now. And I also enjoyed singing to Semi Charmed Life over the end credits. That was fun.
Oh, I may have sang Semi Charmed Life
I
full tilt.
same
Uh,
same because it's a great song. Like it's an
yeah,
excellent song.
it's a great song about doing meth, and
It's one of those songs that you shouldn't really read the lyrics. Like you shouldn't really go too deep into it. Like just enjoy it because it's a nice little boppy tune.
yeah.
But
As I believe I texted to you
yeah,
right after watching it, and for all the Canadians in the audience, Big Shiny Tunes 2 for
yeah.
life.
What up? It's great. That's the
Yeah,
best compilation album. That and Now 3. They came out in the same year.
yeah,
What a year. What a year for
yeah.
music.
True
It was
story. As far as I know, Big Shiny Tunes 2 is still actually the best selling album in Canadian history.
I can't like yeah, of course it is.
Which
Of
you can't
course it
fault.
is.
You can't fault it.
Of
It's
course it
a
is. I'm not even into that. Like I didn't grow up into like rock music or anything like that. I think my brother got it. That's why we had it. It is a tremendous album. One that I still listen to today. Like I don't really listen to Now 3 anymore, even though that has some great songs on it too. But Big Shiny Tunes too, I will put that on every now and then. And it's fantastic. It's absolutely
I'm
fantastic.
just googling it. Apparently, Big Shiny Tunes 2 went on to sell 1.233 million copies before going out of print, and despite being out of print, is still the fourth best selling album in Canadian history. That's incredible.
That is
We should
very
start a
incredible.
podcast about Big Shiny Tunes 2.
I would 100% do that and
Yeah.
just go through. Yeah. It's a really great album. How many Canadian artists are on Big Shiny Tunes too? I actually don't know if there's don't
Uh,
even know if there's
Holly
any.
McNarland is Canadian, isn't she? Yeah, Holly
Pretty sure.
McNarland's Canadian. Bush is American. Collective Soul. Collective Soul is Canadian. No, they're American.
They're American.
The Tea Party is Canadian.
No, they're Canadian.
Widemouth Mason is Canadian.
Okay. Okay, so there's like a
And
decent amount of Canadians.
and
That's
Age of
good.
Electric is Canadian.
So there's decent amount. Okay, because it would.
Yeah,
How funny would it be if like the best-selling Canadian record is a compilation of American and British rockers? But
yeah. Well, that's
that's
what
funny.
1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 4 or 5 tracks out of the 17. So it's like a third. We'll call it a third. We'll
It's
just round up.
fine,
Call it a third.
Canada. It's fine. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
absolutely fine. It's the way that we still call Brendan Fraser Canadian. Like it's fine.
yeah.
It's fine.
It's
It's
yeah.
absolutely fine.
And
I
interestingly,
wrote that
even though she is quite Canadian, I recently learned that Shania Twain has lived in Switzerland for just years.
very long time. Yeah, she's been living there even before she got divorced. I think they just moved over there and just were living there for
Yeah, had their kids
a
there and
long,
stuff.
long
So
time. Yeah, very long time.
yeah,
But
but
she's
that's very
still
much
like a
like the
good
movie.
Canadian girl though. She's still a good Canadian girl. Do you know what
Yeah,
though? I will say the fact that we have sidetracked so much to talk about Big Shiny Tunes too. That's exactly how we feel about the movie, and that there's just it's very
there's just nothing
bleh,
there.
and no, there's nothing there. It's really it's a bit of a shame. There's nothing there. Did you have high
And I
hopes
mean,
for this one though? Did you think that it was like Dave Franco, Alison Brie, like?
so what's interesting is that I'll say two things about that. One is that I basically didn't have any idea this movie even existed
Oh,
until I was looking for something. And I was like, oh, there's a new movie coming out from Dave Franco as a and Alison Brie. Like, oh, well, that's good. And I think you suggested it as one we could maybe watch for the show, which thank you. I never
they're
regret watching a
literally.
movie for the first time.
Yeah, I was gonna say there are literally like I think 3 titles that came out this week. So
Yeah.
that's
Um, but I will say that I think it is. He directed another movie a couple of years ago, I
the
believe,
rental. Yeah,
called
the
The
rental,
Rental,
which wasn't bad
um,
actually. It's
which
pretty
I
good.
which I actually really liked.
Oh really?
That
I
sort of
thought
like
it was
single
good.
location, low key horror is kind of like my jam these days. And so the fact that I hadn't heard anything about it gave me pause. But the fact that he was directing it, I was like, okay, well, he's done one good movie,
Yeah,
as a director, and anything with Alison Brie to me can't be all bad. Like
true.
she's sort of too adorable. Um,
She's very reliable. I think she's very consistent in what her output. She's very very consistent.
she's very consistent, and I really like her as a performer. I think she has a pretty great comedic timing.
Yeah,
And I think it's interesting because I know a lot of people who like. I think she's the more interesting version of the type of actress that Zoe Deschanel is. Do you know what I mean? Like she
yeah,
takes.
yeah. Like the kind of the pixie manic girl kind of thing, right? Like that really
Yeah, but then she
pixie
also
manic
like.
girl with brunette fringe. That's
Yeah,
that's it.
but then she also like takes more chances. Like she's in
Yeah.
more types of things.
I mean, that comes down to her just being, no offense to Zoe Deschanel, but she's just a more talented actress. Like, she's just got more range. Where Zoe Deschanel,
She has a
I think I've
shtick.
only ever seen her in like one type of thing, which I don't think is a bad thing. Like, there's many actors who do that and do that very, very well. Um, but I think
Yeah,
for hers, it's a bit unfortunate because I think like you kind of age out of that role
yeah,
that she has. Like, you eventually will just be too old to do something like that.
yeah, for sure.
Which I think she kind of has now. I haven't seen Zoe Deschanel in a thing in ages. I don't think I've watched her in something in a very very long time. What was
I
the
think I've
last thing
seen
she
her
did?
on. I think I've seen her on TikTok, but I don't. I don't
Oh,
think.
well that doesn't count, no, does it?
No,
That's not a credit.
no.
TikTok.
But I mean, yeah, I really like Alison Brie, so I
Yeah.
don't. Again, I don't think that anything with her in it can't be all bad. I really like Danny Pudi. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, Danny. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I should really look it up. I'm a bad person. Um, I think he's great in everything. Um, and they have great chemistry. I think the really frustrating thing about this movie is that literally all of the pieces are there for it to be good and interesting, and it's just not. Like
And I
there's
like
none of it comes together.
I find it disappointing because I do think Dave Franco has the ability to make something interesting. Like I like the rental is good, and I think that and just from what I've seen from him in interviews as well, like he's an interesting guy, and he has very well spoken. He's got like a lot of interesting things to say, and so to me, when I see like directors like that, I just go like, oh, like you could do something good. And the rental, like you said, it's a good example of what he is capable of.
Hmm.
This movie is, I don't know. I think he could have could have done better, Dave. You could have done better. But then again, you and I aren't making movies, so there's that.
I mean, there's that, and again, like I wouldn't go so far as to say that I regret watching this movie.
No, no, no.
Like it
It's fine.
is, if you looked it up, if you looked at the word "fine" in the dictionary, you would find this movie. You know,
That's
like
how I opened my review for Exclaim. I wrote this movie is the very definition of, I was gonna say fine, but then I think
hmm
I changed it to fine but not good. fine,
like
fine but not good. But
there's
it's
definitely
yeah,
worse ways to like to fetter away like a Saturday afternoon on a rainy
and
day.
it's like a 90-minute movie. Like it's not very long.
Yeah,
And I'll say one thing about it that I did like. The pacing is really good, which I know is a weird thing to compliment a movie on, but there's
no,
just so many movies that they are 90 minutes and they feel like a slog. This
yeah.
one though, it really does just whip by. So, you know, it's not a time waster. I'll say that. It's not a time waster.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
then again,
there's
at the same time, you could just go watch My Best Friend's Wedding,
yeah,
and I think that would be a better use of your time, in
yeah,
my opinion.
and actually, this movie is 106 minutes, so it's actually like
Oh, it's
it's
little
like an
over.
hour. It's like an hour 45.
It's a little bit
But
over
you're right.
long.
It doesn't ever like doesn't really have any like lulls or
No.
anything like that. Like it's consistent pacing in a movie like this. I think is important because it doesn't give you time to stop and think in the moment about how little is actually going on.
You know what I didn't like, and this is a really random point in the movie that it's like a silly thing. I don't like the font that they used. they I like they used a font that showed the years, I think, on in the film. Like briefly. They don't do that very often. But then the end credits pull up, and I did not like the font. Like any of the font, I was just like, I don't like this font, and it's the
This is
stupidest, it's the dumbest thing to criticize a movie for. And I did not write this in my official review on Exclaim, to be clear, because I know it's dumb. But I just
well.
watched. I'm like, who chose this font? Like, it's a terrible font for a movie.
So knowing that you didn't write it into your exclaim review, I'm just going to say thank you for giving the show exclusive content.
Yeah.
But now all I can picture is like you in a dramatic SNL sketch, like Ryan Gosling talking about papyrus. Like, did you know they used papyrus? um, but you're right. Interestingly, I feel like the font. If we're going to go into it, I feel like the font was sort of inappropriate to the movie. So, like, it's just it was a little too
Okay.
whimsical. It was a little bit too whimsical for the way the plot plays out in the movie and for how mean spirited some of the actions taken in it are. So I think
Oh
it's a
man.
valid and interesting criticism.
I will make this another point, is that there's so little going on in the movie that my mind went to, what kind of font is that? like like I shouldn't really care about something. Like, I'll be honest, in Avatar, I don't care about the papyrus font. Like, I'm not the biggest Avatar fan in the world, but I know it's a joke that people make about Avatar. But I never once when I watched it thought, what kind of font is this? This is the first movie I ever sat there and went, wow, that font is terrible for this. Who chose this? Like, and that is to show you there's really nothing going on in the movie. So I
Yeah.
apologize for bringing us down that road, but it had to be said. It just had to be pointed out that the font is no good.
I mean, font analysis in film criticism, I think it's an untapped market. So maybe we should just do that every time.
There are some people who are really into fonts. Like,
There really are. Yeah.
genuinely people who are really into fonts. And
And
I
again,
learned
our
recently
willingness to
what
keep.
sans serif. Yeah, I learned what that meant recently. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's interesting.
yeah, yeah. I think our willingness to keep talking about it just again proves how little's going on. So, knowing everything that we've talked about, and more importantly, how much we haven't talked about it, how many stars would you give this movie?
Um, oh, sorry, I swore there.
It's okay. We're all adults here. Hopefully.
I gave I gave it a 5 out of 10 on Exclaim. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna go down to a 2 because I won't give it a 3. I will not give it the satisfaction of a 3. Give it a 2.
Yeah, I will also
Two
give it
stars.
2 stars out of 5. One each for Allison and for one for Allison Brie, and then one for the supporting cast, who I thought was all pretty good.
Yeah. The
Even
performances
if
are fine. I actually think the
yeah,
performances are all good. None of them are bad.
yeah, like I say, all the pieces are there,
Hmm.
and it just doesn't really. Like honestly, the problem is that you can make a movie that's this thin as long as it's funny, and this movie's
Hmm.
not very funny.
I didn't
As
laugh.
as what it really boils down to.
I didn't laugh once watching. I don't even think I smiled at.
And
I
and
think
I
I
feel
smiled when Semi Charmed Life came on at the end. Then I got really into it, but I don't think I laughed once during the movie.
no wonder
Semi
you.
Charmed
Yeah, I
Life that really got me.
got really the font and the song. I got really into the credits. But I think that's what it boils down to. We've talked a lot about how boring the movie is, but ultimately the problem with it is it just isn't very funny.
Yeah.
And I feel like we probably should have led with that, but that's where we are. So
I'll say,
yeah,
as I was singing along to the movie and I started doing other things, I was just letting the movie run because I just wanted to listen to Semi Charmed Life. I did look over at my screen at one point and I thought, what kind of font is this? like So it all tied together, really. That the font and then the song. So my 2 stars are gonna go to Alison Brie plus Semi Charmed Life because
Yeah,
that's a great
and
song.
that's fair. That's totally fair. Good. Well, that's somebody I used to know. So let's move on to our second title of the show, which is going to be an Apple TV exclusive, although it is, I believe, playing in limited release in theaters in some markets like
I
New York,
think
LA,
only in
and
the States, I believe. Yeah, I don't even
yeah,
think
New York.
Toronto got it.
Yeah, it seems like that kind of thing that if it's going to do a limited release, it would do like Toronto, Vancouver in Canada, maybe, if we were lucky. But anyway, it will be releasing on the 17th, which is this coming week on Apple TV Plus, and it is called Sharper. And why don't you give us the rundown on Sharper, which is a film I think
Um,
we both enjoyed maybe a little more than the last one.
yeah. Yeah, Sharper is Benjamin Caron, I want to say is his surname. I think that's how you pronounce it. Or Caron, I don't know. And it is a I was talking to you about how to describe this movie because there's a lot of spoilery stuff in it, and I don't want to give too much away. But it's essentially a psychological thriller about grifters, and you have Sebastian Stan and Julianne Moore, uh, who play. I don't even know if I want to say who they play.
You should, yeah. I
It's
don't
about
think we can really talk about
yeah, it's a funny
who they
movie,
play,
but
but
it's about yeah, it's essentially about grifters, and it's a movie that have you've heard the term a hat on a hat, like a joke has a hat on a hat. So
mm-hmm,
I only learned that term through Bill Hader and Seth Meyers because
mm-hmm,
it was like a little in joke between them in SNL. And then
mm-hmm,
he uses it in Barry actually at one point where like they use it as a throwaway remark of like it's a hat on a hat and like NoHo Hank says that.
mm-hmm.
And I don't think I really I got it in theory what that means, like a hat on a hat, but watching this movie, I'm like, "Oh, this is what that means." Like this is it's not a joke, but it's just it's a hat on a hat on a hat on a hat. Like this movie has one potentially one too many twists and turns and like, head fakes and all that kind of stuff. It breaks it down into different chapters from the perspective of a specific character. So it starts with Tom, uh, who is played by
Oh, it's
Justice
Justice
Smith,
Smith. Yeah,
who's very, very good. And then moves to his girlfriend, Sandra, is Brianna Middleton. And then it goes to, I believe Max is next, to Sebastian Stan, then
yeah.
Madeline, who's Julianne Moore. And the thing I will say that I think is cool about it is when I first saw those the title cards come up for Tom, I thought, oh, they might be doing like a Rashomon thing where they take the same event but different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't actually do that. Like they kind of move the story along.
Yeah, there's overlap for sure, but it's not.
There's
But
definitely overlap, but it's not an exact retelling of the same scenes from different perspectives. And
yeah,
I appreciate that kind of it wasn't a head fake, but like I appreciated that they did it that way and the movie is relatively linear. There's one part where they do like a bit of jump backs every now and then, but it kind of pushes along the whole way and it's about a 2-hour movie, I think, just under 2 hours. Uh
yeah,
and
it's like
it's
115 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was I did think there was maybe one too many hats. Like I think that it got a little bit like, "Oh, wait, there's another one. Oh, wait, there's another thing." And that kind of got and then I think to do that many hats,
Yeah,
um
I
the
think I think
ending wasn't as impactful as I would think that if you're going to build it up that high, then the ending kind of ends up being a bit I think a little bit predictable, just given everything that's going. Oh, I found it predictable, and so for
I
me, like
mean
leading up to it, I was like, oh. But
what
I
I was
did
go-
enjoy it though. I did enjoy the movie.
what I was going to say is that it's not a little bit predictable. It's it's I
But
think
it's
my
fun though,
preferred.
isn't it? Like even if it's
Yeah,
predictable, it's still kind of fun to follow along and see how they decide to do it.
this is one of those movies that I would more describe in the way that Shrek describes himself in the first Shrek movie. You know, ogres have layers, onions have layers, and movies about grifters have layers. And
Hmm.
as the fun of them is peeling back said layers to find out who's really who. And the I think the problem is that it. And just to be clear, I liked this movie. Like I didn't love
Hmm.
it, but I liked it. I really
Yeah,
like this genre of movie of
me
like
too.
who
Yeah.
do you trust? Like who's telling the truth in this particular instance? And who's doing what. But there was a certain point in this movie, and it was like it was in the first chapter. It was literally in the first chapter where the first time when it becomes clear that the initial setup is that like Tom is this who's Justice
Bookstore
Smith
owner.
is a
Yeah.
bookstore owner, and he's had a bit of a hard life, and has a meet cute with a girl shopping at his store, and then they go on out to dinner, and then they fall in love, and then suddenly her deadbeat brother's around, and she needs money. And the first time that she's like, "My brother's here and he needs money," I'm like, I could tell you the rest of what's going to happen in this movie.
Do you know what it was for me? And I don't normally mind it. I don't mind it, but it was just so blatant to me was when they like would ask her questions about her life. Like when she's meeting his friends.
Yeah,
Oh, we went to Vassar. Oh, I'm studying this. It was like, oh, these are things that it's like you're supposed to remember them. Like they want you to kind of put a pin in your
yeah,
head that, oh, she went to Vassar. Oh, she did this. I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing that it was that obvious. Also, too, we should consider you and I watch a lot of movies more than like the average bear watches movies. So
true.
to us, it's probably a bit more obvious. But it was one of those things that I was like, the more questions that are asked, because there's one girl who goes, "Oh, I went to Vassar too," and you're kind of like, "Ah, something like there's something going on here where she's not telling the truth," and so you kind of just get it from there.
Yeah, and I
But
think it's also like it's worth pointing out that like the marketing of this movie does not make any secret that it is a movie about con artists and people getting conned.
yeah,
I only watched the trailer. I did watch the trailer, and I would say the trailer actually does a pretty good job of obscuring who is who, which is good
yeah.
because
That's the whole point. That's the whole fun of the movie.
it's the
Yeah.
whole fun of the movie. And the movie actually, I think you're right. It kind of does have maybe like one too many twists and
Yeah.
turns. Like it 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 almost comes off the rails in the third
Yeah.
act,
Yeah.
um, but
And
not in a way that I
I
found to be a
didn't,
deal
yeah.
breaker.
No,
Right?
not at all. I will say though, I didn't like the kind of big finale scene. It's not the finale, but like I didn't like that end note there that they did. And I won't talk about it because it's a pretty big spoiler, but I didn't really like that scene. However, overall, still enjoyed it. Even though it's like you can see everything coming like a mile away, I think it's
Yeah.
still a fun movie to watch and sit there. And Sebastian Stan, Julianne Moore, who are both good. Like they're both, and John Lithgow as well. He's in there for a little bit. And he
Yeah.
has hair, which kind of threw me off a little bit. I went, oh, he's got hair, like a lot of
Yeah.
hair. It threw me off. But they're both great in it. And then Justice Smith, Brianna Middleton, are both very excellent as well. So I enjoyed it. It's a fun movie to go through, and I'm like you, like I like this genre of film.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think in a lot of ways, the criticisms of this one are similar to the last one we talked about in that it is, it's not terribly deep. It's a little bit shallow. It's I would say again, you're right, as a person who watches a ton of movies,
Yeah,
quite predictable, but this one does come together. Like
it does.
this one succeeds despite those things, whereas the other one fails because of them. And that's it. That's
It's
actually an
it's
interesting through line.
it's yeah, it's true. We didn't even plan to do these
Yeah,
two movies
that was a
together.
totally planned theme for the episode.
um, but it was yeah, I agree because like this one was still entertaining. Which is, yeah, you're right. Actually, you're completely right. Like both movies, we know how it's going to end. Both movies, we know where they're going with it and all that kind of stuff. Neither movie is particularly deep or thought provoking, which I don't know if they're meant to be. To be fair, but Sharper is definitely far and away more enjoyable to watch and a much more entertaining watch
Yeah,
than that. And I will say, I think the movie is shot beautifully. Like I was so impressed. I really liked the style that they were going for. It kind of got a bit much. Like it was really intense at times, but it really
yeah.
worked for me. And I'm just
It's
looking at the cinematographer is Charlotte Christensen. Her middle name is Bruce. She's
yeah,
Danish. I don't know, but it's shot really cool. Like to me, it was a bit of a tie between Deakins' work in Blade Runner 2049 mixed with David Fincher's Seven, which is also I think Deakins as well. Yeah, Deakins did that one too. So
Yeah.
it's like, to me, it's like a nice blend of the two of them, where it's a lot of vibrant colors and then a lot of shadow work as well is done, and
Yeah.
I think it's gorgeous.
Well,
It's a really
well,
beautifully done movie.
it's actually an incredibly well directed and shot movie,
Mhm.
I would say.
Very much so.
All of the like all and like you can tell all the performers are totally in.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's intense when it needs to be, and it's also very casual when it needs to be. One of the scenes that really sticks out in my mind is just a scene in a bar where some characters are talking, and it's like super casual, and I really enjoyed
Mhm.
it. And then you get the weird like overhead shots of Sebastian Stan sitting in a chair and like picking up a chess piece and examining it, and you're like, this is exactly the right shot for this moment in
I
this
love that
movie.
shit.
And
It's so
like,
good.
and again, it's one of those things that like it's definitely like it's a visual trope, but it's
Mhm.
so well placed and so
It is.
interestingly shot that like it doesn't matter. Like it's sort of perfect for the moment that it
Even
happens.
the open, they do like a nice montage of Tom and Sandra falling in love, and like the two of them kind
Oh
of
yeah,
connecting with each other in the first few. Those montages are usually so. I'll point to somebody I used to know. They do a montage of Sean and Allie when they first reconnect on that day, and like they spend the whole evening together, and it is just so clumsy and very tropey and very like, you're like, yeah, 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 we get it. But this montage, the way that they did it in Sharper, is just beautiful. Like, I loved it. I was watching, I go, wow, I don't think I've enjoyed watching a falling in love montage this much in a very, very long time. Like, it's just really, really well done.
yeah,
And
and
yeah,
actually
I can't
the
say enough about the styling of the movie. I think it's a really, everything, every shot that they choose, and even though sometimes it can be a bit much, like sometimes it's over stylized, but it really works. Like somehow it just works with the movie.
it's because it's consistent. Basically,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
never dropped, and it's the the what level of intensity it goes to does vary, but it doesn't ever stop.
Hmm.
And I would actually
Hmm.
point to there's a big montage at the end that explains exactly who got screwed over by who because
Yeah,
it's a con man movie, so of course it has one of
of
those.
course you have to have
And
that
and
montage.
that montage is also great.
It
Like
is.
it's not particularly inventive in terms of like the narrative that it's trying to convey to you, but it's
No.
really well shot and it's really well
Yeah.
performed and it's really well just generally executed. And there's one scene that's following a character in that montage, following a character leaving a building and like taking off a bunch of makeup and stuff that
Yeah.
is just like the perfect version of that shot, I
It's
thought.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the very classic, like, take the wig off, throw it into a garbage. Like, it's that classic thing in
Yeah.
any con man movie. Like, they always do that.
Yeah.
And
Like
it's
right down to that person tosses away an item
her
into a trash
sweater.
can
Yeah.
that is like yeah, but it's like just far enough away that they have to like toss it and it like is a perfect dunk, like a perfect like swish into
It's
the
a
trash
perfect
can.
it's the perfect Kobe shot. It's like the
Yeah.
Kobe
So
thing, right? Yeah,
yeah.
it's great.
So like
It's
all these it's again I wouldn't go so far as to say that I loved this movie, but
same.
it's a very well executed version of this kind of movie. Kind of
I
like
completely agree.
kind of along the same lines as that Will Smith did one with Margot Robbie a couple years ago. That was
Oh,
sort of the same thing. Focus, it was called, and
Focus,
like
yeah.
same sort of deal, right? Like not
Yeah.
reinventing the wheel,
No.
not incredible, but like really well executed version of this kind of story, and like you can definitely tell where that one's going from like frame 5,
I
but it's
think
still fun.
sometimes, like, movies these days, like, they're trying to get so cute and clever and trying to be like, oh, everything needs to be an elevated version of this genre, this, that, and like social commentary running through and all that kind of nonsense. But and like, because I think maybe we're just getting to the point where we're really sick of recycling ideas. But the thing is, when you can recycle an idea and do it really, really well, nobody cares that you're recycling an idea. Like, if somebody I used to know was done really well, I could care less that they lifted my best friend's wedding. Like, I really couldn't care. But it's just because it wasn't done well. But like, Sharper is done very, very well. And can you remind me, how are you're big on Glass Onion, right? Like, you're a big Glass
Yeah,
Onion guy,
I
big
did
fan.
like it. Yes, I liked it a lot.
So I liked it. I thought it was a good movie, but ever since that movie, because like, it's not a who done it movie as far as I'm concerned. It's not a who done it, even though I don't think that's not the movie's fault, because from what I've gathered is Ryan Johnson kind of he didn't like that Netflix was pushing it as a second whodunit movie, because it's not really a whodunit
It's
movie in my
it's yeah, it's
opinion.
definitely not exactly the movie that they advertised.
No, and I
But
think,
it is a mystery, but it's a different kind of mystery.
yeah, and so there was this movie, and then there was a second movie that I'm gonna try to remember the name of. Um, that to me, this is the best. Oh, Missing. Did you watch Missing? It's like a Screen Life movie.
No, not yet. I haven't seen it yet. I do want to though
So
because I really liked Searching.
yeah, it's fun. Like it's really really fun actually. And that movie, so Missing and then Sharper, are for me like that's my jam with this genre. Like I like that kind of, you can see it a mile away. I know it's coming. It's very very predictable, all the little twists and turns, but I really enjoyed watching it. Whereas I found Glass Onion, maybe because I went in there expecting a whodunit, I was just like, eh, like it's fine. Like it's a fine movie. I have nothing against it. I don't think I've watched it again or anything like that. But those two movies, Missing and Sharper, are better versions of that thriller mystery that I enjoy.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the to the point about Glass Onion is that I think it's a really good follow up to Knives Out. I think it
Hmm.
captures all the same things that I loved about Knives Out, whilst also being unique, like different,
Yeah,
a different type of story and mystery, and I really like that. I just like mystery stories in general. But
same. Yeah.
I would agree though that like where I'm trying to go with this is that like you're totally right in that you can recycle anything you want as long as you do it well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that this might be a lukewarm take, but you know, lots of people complain about how lots of movies are remakes these days, and it's true. I'm not trying to deny the just the regular fact that we have a lot of remakes. However, two of my all-time favorite movies are The Maltese Falcon, which came
Hmm.
out in like 1940 whatever, 45, 42, something like that. Remake. Uh,
Yeah.
Ben Hur, William Wyler classic from 1959, remake. Like
Yeah.
this is not a new thing.
No, it's not.
You can recycle anything you want. You just have to do it well. And Sharper does it quite well.
I think
Somebody
so
I
too.
used to know, not so much, but Sharper does it in a perfectly cromulent and enjoyable way.
Ooh, nice use of the word cromulent.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite words.
It's a great word.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I think like I think I might have written this in my review. Like I said, like if you watch enough movies, yeah, I did definitely write this. I think I wrote something along the lines of, if you watch enough movies, you'll realize Hollywood's been redoing the same stories for a very very long time now. It's not a strike against a movie to rechurn or recycle old storylines, or like literally just lift a movie. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I think the problem that we're getting into right now is it's very rarely being done well now. I think like
it's
people are
a
getting a little bit lazy in how they're remaking movies, and
it's definitely a
if
quantity versus quality argument.
yeah,
But the fact that stuff is
absolutely.
being remade is not the problem.
Yeah, that's not, because you can redo it and it can be great. Like it can be great. Like I West Side Story is a good example of one. Like so many people have seen that. I'm not a huge West Side Story person, just generally speaking. I'm not really big into to the story, like oddly to the West Side Story. Um, but I think like Spielberg did a good job. He did like that. That's a perfectly great job
I
of
mean,
remaking that movie. You know,
West
like
Side Story is also a perfect example because that movie is just a remake of Romeo and Juliet.
yeah,
It's like
you can.
this
And
is
then I'm
not a
sure
new thing.
somebody. And then the thing is, I'm sure Shakespeare lifted it from something else too. Like you know what I mean? Like it just keeps going, and yeah, nothing wrong with it. But this week ended up being good for your podcast called Awesome Friday.
Indeed.
Remember?
Yeah. Well remembered.
Um, thank
Nice
you.
save.
Yeah, it's right on my screen here too. Like I'm literally staring at it. But it kind of worked out well that we did these two movies. We didn't intend to, but because it is a perfect example of two movies that redo a same idea, a same trope, the same type
Yeah.
of movie. One does it very, very well. Actually, I wouldn't say very, very well. One does it well,
When does
and
it?
in an entertaining way.
Yeah.
Um, and the other, yeah,
Not so much.
yeah, no.
So on a scale of 1 to 5 and no half numbers, where are you going to place the movie Sharper?
Oh,
I'm going to place it very solidly at 3 stars.
Yeah, I think I'm at a 3. I'm between a 3 and a 4, but if I had to choose between two, I'd go 3. I'd
That's
go
the type of
3.
thing where like out of 10, it might be a 7. Like
Yeah, I still have to figure out what I'm going to give it out of 10. But I'm
yeah,
a 3. I'm very comfortable with a 3. I think it's a solid 3.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's still
Oh, I
it's
also want to make a remark. Sebastian Stan's eyebrows look really weird in it, and I just wanted to point that out there. His eyebrows look
okay.
strange.
For some context, do Sebastian Stan's eyebrows ever not look strange?
No, they don't. They usually look very good. I actually think that that's one of his best qualities on his face. He's got a very beautiful face. He's a very pretty man, very handsome.
He is very
Um,
handsome.
he's a very, very handsome guy. And his eyebrows are really helpful because they're very full and they're very nice. I think I'm going to bring Elvis up again. I think he dyes his hair a little bit too dark. Sebastian Stan, it's a little too dark in this for him. Like it's a bit closer to black than brown. And Elvis was very famously shoe polish black hair, which he shouldn't have been because he looked better with dark brown hair.
Hmm.
It's neither here nor there.
Well, that's the kind of hard hitting content you get from the Awesome Friday Movie Podcast.
Yep.
It's an analysis of
Font
fonts and hair color.
commentary, fonts, and Sebastian Stan's hair color, which his eyebrows looked weird because they dyed it like pretty much black, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, I will say
I
too
found it
that
distracting.
Justice Smith is a performer who, as it turns out, every time I see him, I'm like, oh, Justice Smith is in this. I'm probably going to enjoy it,
Yeah,
and that's some comment that is definitely, at least in part, that I think he makes good choices, but also that he's just good. He's very good at playing the characters he's chosen to play, and I
he is
appreciate
very
it for
good.
that.
What else? I'm trying to. What else has he been in? Let me.
Film wise, he was in
Oh,
Detective Pikachu, and um, he was in the second Jurassic World movie, which I'm one of the only people I know who I'm like, that movie is better than the first Jurassic World movie, because
yeah.
they're
What's
both
that
not
saying
neither
though?
neither one is
What's
good, but this one at
what
least
is
is
that even
trying something new with
saying?
the formula.
What's that saying?
He was also the lead in a Netflix show called The Get Down, which I adored. And I
Oh, looks
am
like he's gonna be in Dungeons and Dragons as well.
yeah, and I think um, he's
And
in
he's in
something else
Toby
coming up
Jones.
too.
He's in
Yeah,
Toby
he's
Jones.
been in a bunch of stuff. Is
Interesting. I liked him. I really liked it. I think this was probably the first time I've seen him in something. But I thought he was I thought he was good. And Julianne Moore is someone I always like watching her on screen. I think she's a very shockingly Julianne Moore, a talented actress. Just
yeah, and like
FYI for people out there.
just very sexy as well. She's a very sexy lady.
Yeah. It is a sexy like her and Sebastian Stan, the two of them. Real sexy.
Yeah,
Good sexy.
yeah, good. Well, so I think that is where we're gonna wrap it up. We're basically at time here. Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
Pretty much on the payroll at this point. So uh, I will forward you your check for $0 sometime soon.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, where can people find you and your work?
I go to rachelkh.com and I am on Twitter at _RachelKH.
At least as long as Twitter will be around.
As long as
We
that's around. Yeah, I really went haywire the other day.
Yeah, I was gonna say we keep saying that, but it keeps like surviving the various
I think it'll be
crises.
fine. I actually do think it's going to be fine. I don't think it's going anywhere because it is pretty much the last text-based social media that there is. Everything else is pictures and videos, and I'm not really willing to start doing videos. So there you go.
And there's like 6 competitors for Twitter, and none of them are. I mean, some of them are okay, but none of them are good. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter as well at SmatthewAF, and same on Instagram, which I rarely post to. And you can find the show at Awesome Friday CA at Awesome Friday CA.
See, you
On
even mess up the name of your own podcast. How am I supposed to remember it?
That's an excellent point that I choose not to address. On both Twitter and Instagram is what I was trying to say. And for everyone who's listening, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate each and every one of you. If you've liked what you've heard, please consider giving us a 5-star review or a follow or a like or any of the things. Tell your friends about us. And we appreciate that'll help us more than we can possibly say. But also, we have a Patreon and a Ko-fi, and those will both be in the show notes. Should you decide to support us a little more directly, we record this on the unceded lands of the Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish nations here in BC, and also
the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Scugog Island First Nations, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Mine's a lot longer than yours.
It is. It's a bigger.
It's a bigger area.
Is it? I'm not really sure if it's more smaller groups or if it's a larger area, but either way.
Yeah.
I still think it's important that we do that.
It is. I agree.
Yeah. But that is the show. Again, thank you one more time for listening and for joining us on this awesome project.